everyone. It's your host, Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show. And today, you guys are in for a treat. Not that their story isn't changing the lives of women, isn't changing the lives of many people across the United States. And I think today we're going to see if we can get to the core of what these two ladies, friends, compadres, associates are laying down. I have coming to the Gentleman Style Podcast stage, Miss Deana and Lizzie. Forgive me, I don't want to say it right. Deana and Lizzie come to the Gentleman Style Podcast stage. And these two women share their incredible story. The guest that I have on today, it sounds like something out of a Lifetime movie or a Hallmark movie that needs to be played every holiday and just bring the family closer together, bring friends closer together. They've definitely grown closer together, and you can see it live on their website. And everyone they touch, everyone they speak to, every young girl they inspire by every word, and it is true. They were both married to the same narcissist, a man who they discovered was leading a double life. And so, incredible. Help me welcome these two fascinating ladies, these two rock stars, these two rock star incredible women to the Gentleman Style Podcast stage. I can't hold them back any longer. So help me welcome Miss Deana and Lizzie.
Wow, that is the best introduction I have ever heard about us in my life.
And I was like, I guess we're over now. We're done. That's it. It was nice having us on, Marcus. Thank you.
We're celebrities. I love it.
You guys are phenomenal. And again, what you all have not seen is backstage. I was talking to these two incredible women, and I was just thanking them, because when you hear this story, I truly meant that it's a lifetime story that needs to be, and usually it breaks your heart to hear it. But they have found the courage, the strength, and the willingness to give back and share their story here on Gentleman Style Podcast stage. So I applaud you too, and I want to say that to you publicly, not just backstage. Thank you for giving back, because these are the untold stories. I was telling a friend of mine, people grow up in a bubble and they think their truth is reality until a young girl hears you two speak, and then they realize, oh my gosh, I was a part of that, or I had no idea that was so wrong. I had no idea that was a true thing. How did you two, and let's start with Diana, how did you two find the courage to speak out about being connected to, plug word, narcissism, a narcissist who just took you through an emotional roller coaster? Can you help peel back the layers? What gave you the power to speak about this? Because I'd be in the wall. I'd be under a couch, crippled in fear, not wanting to tell a soul.
You know, you're right on one aspect. It really is a very vulnerable thing to talk about because, when you do find that you're in these kinds of relationships, some of the first emotions you feel are like, I feel so stupid. I mean, there were signs everywhere. People saw it. Everybody saw it. And what was I thinking? Like, how could I do that? And now I'm supposed to tell people, and especially if you've been in more than one narcissistic relationship, now you're like, I'm supposed to admit that I've, have gone for more than one. But I think, the one of the first things that gave me courage was that Lizzie and I were in this together, because I was married to him first for 27 years. And then she married him second. Of course, we didn't know each other. He had found Lizzie on a dating site. And, I ended up knowing about her because she was my children's stepmother. Even though they were adults, they knew she was a wonderful woman. But when the rubber hit the road with her as well, after 6 years of marriage, then it was my son that said, you two need to connect. You two need to connect. And, Mom, you need to tell Lizzie what happened. You've got to tell her, because, there's a lot of confusion and upset. And sometimes you just really don't exactly know what you're seeing and feeling and hearing, because they keep telling you you're wrong. But that's one thing that I would say gave me a whole lot of courage, was that we were going to do this together. Now, Lizzie drug me into it, in fairness. She basically said, we're going to tell our story. This story has to be told. Because by the time we were done with our part of the story, he'd gone on to woman number 4.
Whoa.
And we just couldn't stand by. We just had to take the chance to be vulnerable and to come forward, because how many lives? I mean, we're talking 4 families that he ruined just by marriage and marrying these women, not to mention all the women that he stalked and, was because he had a sexual addiction. So, not to mention any of that behavior and all the women that were harmed by that. So, um, yeah, that's the courage that it gave me, just having her as my sidekick, and basically she didn't give me a choice.
Mm. Lizzie, what evidence you have? The jury is out, right? How did you find the strength to share? I hear some of it, but there's always 2 sides to every story. You drugged Diana to hey girl, we need to spill the tea. We need to talk about this. We need to, and Diana's son got
Yeah.
involved somehow. So how did you find the strength?
I think my strength really came to the core of my faith. I
Mm,
really felt like it was laid on me that it needed to be told. And I mean, there's so many layers without unraveling our whole story. When I discovered he was leading a double life, I found cards and letters stacked up, and I thought they were from me, so I opened them up, and it was a woman. There was pictures of her, there was dates that he and I were married together. That's where the double life came in. And I could tell this woman had a very good, strong, faith-based life, and there was something in me that told me that she didn't know I existed. And the dates were incredible because it was a time I was, like, wondering what was going on in our marriage, because my marriage really did not look exactly like Dina's. We may have married the same guy, but I always told Deana, she put him through a lot of training.
mm,
He was in all kinds of, like, counseling and stuff. But when I opened those cards, 3 things came to mind. Number 1, this person did not know that I existed. Number 2, she needed to know that what was going on, and then we needed to find her. And number 3, that our story was needed to be told to the world to protect other people from exhibiting or finding themselves in these same situations. And to be truthful, when I was dragging Deana, I was more dragging Deana like, "Hey, Deana, let's do a blog and maybe we can go talk about it." And then it was Deana a little while later that's like, "Hey, I think podcast is the way we should go," because Deana is really good with just talking about things, and I'm more of a writer. I'm the introverted, introspected kind of person. So it really took a journey that I don't think I thought we would take. That was definitely in my mind, but I'm glad sometimes that courage comes and you didn't know it was there. You just look back and go, "Man, I didn't know I had the guts to do that."
absolutely. Absolutely. I So the love notes that you found was Dina's love notes?
No,
No,
because
this is
no.
a third woman.
Yeah. This was after 6 years of our marriage. I went through a phase where there was weird stuff going on, and I was locked out of our phone account, locked out of some of our bank and credit card stuff. I was just, like, dumbfounded because I thought we had a decent marriage. I thought our marriage was okay. So I thought, well, what Deana had with her relationship with our ex is definitely not the same as mine, so maybe we're gonna make it and things are good. And it changed right away. Now, looking back now, I know there's warning signs that I should have paid attention to, but these were from another woman who was wanting to share her life with him, and I realized that this was it was like all those questions that you have in your head, there's one moment in your life that all of those questions were answered. Maybe not all the gory details, but everything was answered of, "Now this makes sense why my marriage was going weird." He was trying to hide 2 different things and living 2 different lives, and that's why he always called me sweetie, because I realize he calls all of us sweetie, because it would be hard to keep track of the person's name, you know? And that's
Yeah.
crazy. It
Yeah,
was crazy.
that is crazy. You said something very key. There was overlap. There was some intersections that cued you into, hey, this woman, he's writing a letter and talking about things that intersect with my marriage with him.
Yeah.
And there are things that led you to feel that this woman doesn't know about me
Yeah.
because we were doing this, or on that day we were in Cabo, or
Yeah.
on this day.
Yeah.
Diana, did you have that same experience where there was some overlap? How did you discover the double life, that he was a double agent? Um, Notes on the floor, hidden secrets, double
Well,
cell phones.
Well, here's the interesting part. So when he was with me, it was more like, a sexual addiction. Is it okay for me to talk about that on your show?
That is absolutely okay.
Okay, okay. So it was definitely a sexual addiction. So there were things like I would find, 900 numbers on his phone, where you could pay for, you know, dirty things to be said to you. And he would go to strip clubs and he would do things like that. So it was all virtual cheating, if you will. Not to say that that was any less impactful, because it was absolutely traumatizing, especially being a Christian woman, and we have a Christian family with children. That was absolutely devastating. I couldn't figure out where this was coming from. I was absolutely shocked. And so those are the kinds of things that I would catch him at. And it was never an actual person that he was involved with until at the very end. Then I found out that he had an actual affair with somebody. And I was dumbfounded, because again, I didn't think that that was his MO. But in Lizzie's case, even I was dumbfounded to find out that he had been living a life with Lizzie in a marriage with her, and she's a wonderful person, and building a life in a neighboring town for almost a year with another woman and her children, like literally making a whole life with her, and telling her, this other woman, we call her Jane, he was telling Jane that, the reason that he wouldn't bring her into the home because he was taking care of an elderly couple, and that he didn't want to bring her in and disrupt the elderly couple. And so he had reasons for not bringing Jane into, the home where he and Lizzie lived. And then he had reasons for not spending the night at her home. We're Christians. We don't do that. So I will not stay the night at your home. Meanwhile, he's telling Lizzie here that he's, doing Uber, and he's getting some extra money, and he's going off to a men's retreat, to really get closer to God. And he's giving her all these wonderful things that he's doing. And then he's telling the other woman that he's doing these wonderful things by taking care of an elderly couple, by living there and taking care of them. And so that was completely different than what I experienced. So that was a great question, though. But it still shows that in a way he did definitely have a double life, because everything he did during our marriage, he was sneaking and lying and, getting better and better and better at covering it up. And I didn't catch him usually for several years, and at that point he would run to our pastor and, weep and cry and ask for forgiveness. And our pastor would tell me that he's a good guy. He's just caught up in this. Like this is not who he is. It's not who he wants to be, and you guys need to tackle this together. More prayer, more Bible time, more, all the things, like do the things that a wife would do, right? Pray for your husband, intercede for him. And then, obviously telling him, like, you are just spiritually weak, you're too much in your flesh and you need to grow that spiritual side of you. So I'm getting all of these messages that this is something that can be fixed and taken care of, and I don't have to break up my family. And yet, every so many years it would resurface up again. So in a way, I guess it was a duplicitous life, just like Lizzie's, but hers just took on a very different flavor, because now we have this third woman who was blissfully unaware that this man was even married to Lizzie. He thought that Lizzie didn't exist. He thought that she thought that Lizzie did not exist. She thought that he had been single right after me. So he'd been single for 6 years. She had no clue. So very interesting story.
So he was with you. Y'all were married, Diana, for how long?
27 years.
27 years. Lizzie,
20
and then 6 years. With
6
Lizzie.
years. Yeah.
So this third woman was collectively over 30 plus years being led on. Am I understanding that right?
So I was with him for 27 years, and then I divorced him. And then he and Lizzie met and married for 6 years. And the last year of their relationship, he was with woman number 3. So he was only with her for less than a year. Yeah. So while he's with Lizzie, he is building a whole family with another woman, a Christian woman as well, in a whole nother town.
Well, and I kind of wanted to quick piggyback off of what Deana said when she said something that she didn't know I existed. To be fair, she even did a background check on him, and the only person that showed up was Deana and her kids, and not me and my kids. I have 4 children from my previous husband, so it was just flabbergasted. Like, we tell people too before this, like, hey, go get do a background check, because you just don't know who's out there, if you got, especially if you have, uncomfortable feelings or whatever. And so she was dumbfounded. She thought she had done all the right things to research into his own background as well. So he did a really good job. He really did. Until he didn't.
Absolutely. Until he got caught. Shame on you, sir. Shame on you. I want to ask each of you what drew him to you initially. There's always a pull, right? What made you first initially? Was it butterflies? Was it, oh, he's so handsome? Oh, he is a Christian man. He's doing all the things. Check, 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 check. And now here comes wedding bells. What drew you to him, Deana? What drew you to him, Lizzie? Starting with Miss Deana. Deana, forgive me.
Yeah, that's okay. So it was all the above that you mentioned. Now, granted, I was only 17 years old, so I was very naive. But I will tell you, here's what Lizzie and I have discovered with many women that we've talked to and interviewed that have been with a narcissist or a toxic personality. They usually attract to a pleaser. They usually attract to someone who's somewhat naive. And if you are, in addition to this, Christian, it is like the perfect trifecta. So here I was, a young, naive Christian, people-pleasing, completely unaware, and a narcissist is going to take a little time to study you and figure out what matters to you and what you love and what's important and how to charm you. And that's what they'll do. So they'll just chameleon and they'll become that ideal person that you are attracted to. And of course, yes, they're charming. And of course, yes, he was also handsome. And he also had all the qualities that I thought I wanted. I mean, all of a sudden, he's this Christian man and he went to my high school. I mean, I was only 2 years behind him. So all my friends in high school knew him. They all thought very highly of him. He was, basketball star, got a scholarship for baseball, very popular in high school. I was not a popular kid. I was kind of the, nobody knew who I was kind of kid, nerd, but he was. And so people knew him. It wasn't like he was some stranger, that he was grew up in my town. And so one of my best friends is who introduced me to him. So it was a really interesting situation that, you can just sort of be dumbfounded, but it's not like somebody that you didn't know or someone that your community doesn't know. And here's another thing about narcissists is that, man, they can convince and fool an entire community of people. It's really the relationships that are very close to them is where you can find the most clues. So parents, siblings, if you're older and they have children, those are where you really look for clues. Are they estranged from their family members? Have they not talked to their kids in years? Things like that. You kind of have to just take those things and keep a sharp eye out.
But also drawing to your family, right? Using your family against you and leveraging the relationships that matter to you. So that same community, they've estranged their own family, but have now attached themselves. Oh, what is my dear son-in-law? He could do no wrong. The kids love him. He's at every game, right? I think that can blur the line as well. What do you think, Miss Lizzie?
Well, for me, yeah, mine was different because I was single for 10 years. I'd been doing it on my own, and I'd gone to school when I was going through that whole phase of the 10 years, working. And so they were all involved in different activities. So when I met him, like Deana said, they immerse themselves into your life. They're chameleons. They can kind of go off what you want and then give you what you want to hear. And then they can follow through with some action. So his wooing was taking my kids to the baseball games or swim practice or football or theater, whatever it was. He wooed me that way, or taking me to go grocery shopping. Things that were really like, it's like he came into my life at a time that I needed that rescue, but I didn't know I needed that rescue. So he just kind of was able to swoop in knowing that I was needing the rescue and what I needed, and fed that. And then everybody that I introduced him to, like I always said, after my first marriage, I went through a lot of abuse. So I was very, very cautious. I mean, it goes to show that we can still get caught up. I mean, I was so busy looking for someone that had the traits of my first husband. I didn't look for any other traits because I just learned those traits. Like if I had learned other traits to watch for or be cautious of, I probably would never have been in it the second time around. But that's just all part of learning. We got to learn all of them, not just what we went through. And because I was using that filter of my first husband and what I went through, what this person brought me was like, Zorro.
Yeah.
Come in and help you, and I'm gonna get your groceries and blah blah blah, and I'm gonna take good care of you. And you're like, after being single with 4 kids, you're like, oh, this is wonderful. And so yeah, he did a really good job. My dad really, really liked him, which is huge because my dad was a very discerning man. And I figured if my dad really liked him, that was a good sign too. I wasn't attracted right away. I loved his sense of humor. I loved just how he would, try to be there to support me or whatever. But I wasn't like, oh my goodness, what a good looking guy. It was more like, oh, I kind of like this. Love kind of when it hit hard and it hit fast when it hit. And it was because of maybe a month or two of him schlepping my kids, helping with just that basic stuff.
Taking the load off.
Yeah,
Taking the load off, taking the burden off and making your life easier. It's like, oh, love can fall right into place.
Yeah,
Did you
exactly.
did you experience any of the sexual going to the weird phone numbers or the call me up sex lines or the stripper party, the strip clubs, any of those things?
I didn't. I think if and maybe I wasn't looking for him on the other side, everything was on his phone when we were in the dating aspect of it. I didn't see it until probably 4.5 years later on his phone. When I picked it up, I was like, "Oh my goodness, what's in this?" Because I always knew his codes to get in. He knew all the codes to get in my phone. But I got to the point where I did that so much in my first marriage. I thought, okay, he built enough trust in me that I didn't need to just go through his stuff. And then when that just was like shoved in my face, it was like, okay. I mean, I was about to leave that first time and I didn't. But I mean, mine was just so different than Dina's. And I think because we don't have the 900 numbers like we used to, because everybody has it in the palm of their hands with their cell phone and the internet. So it looks different. And I never thought that I'd have to backtrack and check on somebody like this, you know. My second time around, I was like, I'm not going to babysit my husband.
Yeah, as you shouldn't, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's and I think you said that earlier. There was a level of maturity. Maybe there wasn't anything then. Maybe Deana had matured him out of that phase. At least I don't know. We don't know. Hope he's under a bridge somewhere. But maybe he got out of that phase, or maybe he got more crafty because Deana had gotten good at catching him. So he's like, I got to change this behavior.
I think it was
Because
crafty. I think he got a lot
craftiness.
more crafty. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think so too. So, hey man, that's you did all the right things, ladies. I think you checked all the boxes. And for the young ladies watching these two, again, I can't do anything but applaud their courage. 27 years, 6 years, that's a long time. That's a lot of life, right? A lot of life that you can't get back. Who knows how happy, how blissful you all would be had he not wasted so much of your time. What's the most elaborate lie he told? Um, how did you and how did he pull it off? What's the most, just listen, this is blatantly a lie. This is no way this happened. You weren't here. I was here. My girlfriend saw you. Anything like that, ladies?
Well, there are a couple of them, but I'll start with one. The first one, and this is when we were barely married. I mean, we might have been married 9, 10 months. And back then, of course, we didn't have cell phones. That I'm dating myself, but there were 900 phone numbers, and that also dates me, on our home phone bill. Our home phone bill came in, and I was like, what is all this? It was $900 worth of those phone calls in
Whoa,
1 month. And back in the 80s, that is a lot of money, a lot. And I was
that's a
so
lot now.
dumbfounded. Yeah, I was absolutely dumbfounded. I just couldn't believe it. And so I didn't know what they were. I mean, again, very naive. Call called one of the numbers, and you got, oh, that was a terrible thing to do. Got this most disgusting woman's voice telling me all the things she was going to do, and that was a bad wake up call. So of course I'm freaking out, right? And he comes home, and I confront him, and I'm like, what is this? What did you do? Like, and he's like, he does this amazing, like, Oscar winning performance. That wasn't me. I would never do that. Like, I'm a Christian. I go to church. Like, I'm a good guy. I would never do that. It had to be the neighbor kid. You know that kid that lives down the street?
Yeah,
He
yeah.
he he probably did it. I'm like, okay, you're telling me there's probably 40 calls on here. You're telling me 40 times at different times this neighbor kid snuck into our home and made sex calls every single time and never got caught. It was like,
Oh,
as naive as I was, and I think I might have been 18 years old at that time, I wasn't even that naive. I couldn't possibly buy it. So that was probably the most outrageous lie he ever told.
and got caught. That's dumb. Forgive me, Lizzie.
Well, here was mine. It was at the end. He went away to go to a men's retreat, to go up to the mountains to pray about our marriage and fast or whatever. And he left me you have to realize I went through a weird stage all at once. He left $10 on the countertop for me to spend for that weekend. That
What?
was it. Yeah. My sister will
What?
tell you that too. And I look at my sister, and I mean, it's embarrassing, I don't know if he thought my sister would front the bill of everything. And I remember we were driving away, and I said, "So much weird has been going on. I need to leave him." And at that point, I was thinking just a separation at that point, not necessarily a divorce. And then she literally, in that same hour, got a U-Haul 30 minutes before it closed on a Friday night. We loaded up my kid. One of my sons and his friends came and helped load a bunch of stuff up. I took our bed. I took, just a bunch of stuff, the best TV, you name it, I took it. And I was like, this just seems so vindictive. But I was so broken and so confused of what was going on. And I thought, well, maybe through counseling things will work out. Because I had not been talking to Deana at this point. So I didn't know his history. And so I left. And then he came home 3 days later to a very ramshacked house and called me crying and screaming about, not screaming, but just, you put the nail on the coffin in my head. I was going out to pray and work on our marriage, and you took our bed, and now I have to sleep on a couch. I mean, he was just going on. And then because of his emotion, I'm feeling guilty. I'm feeling guilty that I did this to him, but something in me said, stand your ground, even though I was a hot mess. My poor sister was doing all kinds of stuff while I was talking to him on the phone, getting the house set up, getting me all nested in. And come to find out later on, he was with Jane, and was trying to get her to marry him while they were at her sister's house. I
You're
was
kidding.
like, "No," and I didn't find that out until, like, a few months later after our divorce was final. Yeah.
Is Jane a part of this? Should we invite Jane later? Like, do we need a part two to get Jane on the horn? No.
We
Oh
wish
my
we
god.
could. We wish we could. Jane, at this point, we had offered to have her be a part of this, but she has just felt like her life is just taking a different turn at this point. But, you know, I respect that too. I guess Deana and I are just gonna be as transparent as possible and spread the dirt or spread the word.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is, man, that's real. That's real. And got caught and felt some type of way about it. The manipulation is on 10,000 here, ladies. The manipulation is unreal. Um Sometimes I hear women who've entered narcissistic relationships say, you know, he makes you feel low. He made me feel bad. He made me all the same things. But you two shine brighter than any star. You're successful women. Even at 17, uh, historically, women are doing better than men. They're occupying positions of parliament. Women are killing it, right? And so, can you explain kind of the mindset of where you two are, Deana, where you was at 17, 18, probably taking off, going off to some prestigious college? What were you doing? Same thing with you, Lizzie. What were you doing? Because what I'm thinking of is a young woman who's in a narcissistic relationship and doesn't know it. And the common theme is, well, he makes me feel bad. I'll give you some caveat. The last lady who I interviewed about narcissism, she was a journalist, like a really high six-figure news anchor at a very um prestigious television network in her home community, earning six figures, doing very well, degrees, all the accolades. And somehow this man still made her feel like she wasn't worth it. And so, can you ladies help the young woman watching you? Where were you were who you are today, and what were some of the things that he would try to do to make you feel like you're not worthy, even though you were more than likely killing it and doing a great job? Deana?
Well, of course, marrying him at 17, I mean, I was a manager at Kentucky Fried Chicken, so I can't say that I was any kind of prestigious.
Well, no, 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 no. Manager is still that's up, right? Most people start at
Sure.
Friday. So
Sure,
don't,
sure. Especially 17. I guess at
right.
17, being a manager is pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but ironically, just to say that, ironically, during our relationship, because I did feel so less than and couldn't quite put my finger on it, I never quite understood why I felt that way. Because he would, they do love bomb you as well, right? They do these awful things in action, but then they turn and love bomb you. So you're always confused about why you feel the way you do, and you tend to blame yourself. But in order to escape that to some degree, I did, get into the medical field. And by the time, and this is where God is so good, by the time we were breaking up 27 years later, I got my first manager position at a hospital in radiology. And because we had moved to California from Arizona, the pay also was double what I would have made there. And it was like the Lord was like, I'm going to open up this door for you. Your relationship's not going to make it. And by the way, you're going to get this position and you'll be able to support yourself. And it was such a beautiful thing that all of a sudden I had this six-figure position, from 30 years, 30 plus years in healthcare, and was able to support myself. But I do feel like, there are two types of women, I think, that can fall into these relationships as far as career is concerned. It can either be a woman who hasn't quite found herself and her footing and where she is and where she's going. It can be that kind of woman where she's like, someone kind of comes in and fills that gap in her life, and maybe she decides to be a mother and, stay at home and be in church with her spouse. Or it can be, the CEO, the executive, the high caliber, career type person that that obviously, this narcissist sees them as a money ticket and a wonderful place to hide what they're doing and make themselves look great. So it can be either way, really. And, for me, I think it was kind of both. At the beginning of the relationship, I just wanted to be a mom. I just wanted to have children. I wanted all those things. And because I was being made to feel so just gross and pushed down and like things were not balanced or okay in myself, it pushed me actually to I need something outside of this relationship to give myself some value because I never felt seen. I never felt like he even knew me.
Mhm.
And it was so vague, though, it was very hard to put your finger on. So I do think that pushed me the other direction.
Absolutely. Shout out to doing big things as a lead nurse, a professional. Miss Lizzie, how did he knock down your self worth? Again, where you are today, and what tactics he used to.
Well, I think for me, it was I had worked hard to get my degree. I started college sometime after I was single, and then I fought hard to get through school while working to put the best that I could, food on the table for my children and a roof over my head, their heads, and by the time that I met him 10 years later, I was a special education teacher at a very good school, high school, and I was department chair of the sped department, and I was on the, like, district's curriculum committee, for special ed, and it just was a good time for me, I guess, too, like, I'd worked hard, and then when I met him, it was more I ended up following him because he was in a system of to get ready to retire, and with the moves out of state and different places, it would increase his retirement. So I left my career and followed him, and I think going back to your question, what was the sense of self-worth was or how did he attack that part in me? I was always very insecure about finances because I was left holding the bag after my first marriage and trying to figure out how to move forward, and then here I am now at that point going, "We were destitute." Like, there's no reason to be destitute with the kind of careers and the jobs that we had, and his way of coming at me was, "Oh, we spent too much money. You wanted those new pair of shoes. We wanted to do this and that," so it was like, "Wow, was I really that bad with money?"
He made you feel guilty. I think you said that earlier.
Yeah.
He turned off the cards. He turned off
Yeah, right towards the end
the
before I
end.
moved out. Yeah. And I was trying to be sensitive because it was like, you're like, "Yeah, we're really struggling financially," but I shouldn't have. We shouldn't have
Not
at that stage.
not
Mm-mm.
based off of how well you had progressed and what you were doing in career wise.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I filed bankruptcy twice when I was married to him. Well, because really truly he also was financially abusive. And so usually when people have one form of addiction or abuse, there'll be two or three that come along with it. And so not only did he have a sexual addiction, but he also had a financial problem. And so Lizzie also filed bankruptcy once when she was with him in that short 6 years. And that's kind of what would happen is he would just spend money like it was going out of style and then turn it around and make it a we problem. And so that also made you feel awful. Like going to bankruptcy court, I have never been more humiliated in my life than to sit there and stand in front of a judge and feel like horrible for not doing my part because I worked 2 and 3 jobs when my kids were little. I would cry all the way to work because I didn't want to leave them, you know, and but I had to. I had to just keep working because there was just never enough and it felt like almost like a financial curse. Like you really felt like no matter how much you tried and how many hours you worked and how much money might be coming in, it was never there. And so
Did
that's
did
another thing that makes you feel low.
So he had access to all the money, yours, his, joint accounts, or Was it him spending all his money and then turning to you all and saying, "Babe, I didn't pay this bill, or I didn't pay these bills, or we need more money," and that type of thing? Or was it all joint accounts?
Yeah, he liked to be we had joint accounts. I mean, we just did what a normal marriage couple did, and he liked to be in charge of the bills, which I will say for the most part he was pretty good at it. He's pretty good at figuring out how to borrow from this one to pay that one, and I could never do things like that. But what he did quietly on the side was get credit cards and then charge things on credit cards. And when it finally became a huge issue in our marriage where I was furious with him, because I remember one time I had to borrow $20 from my mom to buy food. And then I went to our garage and there was a brand new tool shed, a toolbox, and all kinds of new tools that he had hidden in there from me. And I
Mhm.
couldn't believe it. I was so humiliated. So that also can make because when you're in a relationship with somebody, what they do makes you feel like you do it too, even if you don't, right? So you're humiliated and embarrassed about their sexual addiction. You feel dirty and disgusting about what they're doing. You think you're doing the right thing to combat it and to be a partner with them, to help them, overcome it. And then if they're doing these financial things as well and you're filing bankruptcy or you can't pay your bills, or I watched my car be towed away one day. So embarrassing, come right in front of the house. They tow your car away. It's like you're still in that with them. And it really does affect that sense of self and worth and all the things when you're in a relationship like that, where they're doing the thing, but you are still part of it.
Yeah, I absolutely. And to a degree, I understand the you feel like it. I think it's valid, right? And two incredible women doing big things at the height of their career, doing have a lot of upward mobility, and I think your partner is a direct representation of you, and so I don't think that's wrong when we feel that, when we feel like, man, I should just let him sink. But that's your partner. So if he's going to, you know, the PTA meeting and he's in raggedy clothes, or he's pulling up, or he's late because his car broke down, and but you're there and your car is running, that's a reflection of the whole unit. We don't look good as a unit, right? And so for the young woman watching this, I say to you, it's a normal feeling to want to uplift your partner. And these two incredible women have learned from it. And they're speaking to the young, incredible woman that you're going to be. But don't, again, use these idols, these role models, these women as role models to look at yourself and say, "Oh, I'm not alone." Also remember that I'm not alone. I'm not weird for feeling this feeling. I want my partner to do well, but he just has this thing. He just has this thing. If we can get over the thing, then we'll be okay. That's it. That's an okay feeling. That's a natural feeling, as these two incredible women have shared. I wanna dig. This is something that people will be shocked by. They're like, "What? Marcus has emotions?" Yes, men have emotions. Um, I need you ladies to speak to when the betrayal happened and when you discovered that the marriage will probably have to end. Um, what did you feel like in your body? Physically, emotionally, spiritually? How did that Can you speak to those emotions there? And this time I'll start with Lizzie on that question.
I think I, for the longest time in the beginning, had shock because I did not have any answers for a while. And I just remember kind of being a hot mess at work and like just trying to figure out what was going on. And I couldn't eat. I couldn't, I just, I was just a mess. And I wanted answers, but I knew I probably wouldn't get any. And when, like I said, when I first left, my whole thought was maybe this is just a separation. And then it was like a couple weeks later when I was confronting about the phone bill and stuff, I said, "Are you talking to another woman?" He said, "Well, maybe I am. What are you gonna do?" And I said, at that point, I was already with an appointment with an attorney. So I was like, we're not going to just be separated. I'm filing for divorce, which I grieve already over one marriage. So now I'm going to grieve over another marriage. And I felt more stupid. In fact, I didn't tell people for a long time with the second one because I'd gone through so much trauma with the first one. I thought, how could I be here? And I just remember feeling so low over and over. I'm glad Deana would talk to me and tell me the journey that she went through. And I didn't go back to the house to find those cards until 5 days after our divorce was final, and he was crying and begging me up to the hour of the divorce for me not to divorce him. And I felt so much guilt and so much pain at that point. And then when I saw the actual duplicity that he had, I think for 2 weeks, every time I saw a trash can, I wanted to throw up. That's how devastated I was. I was at that point, I couldn't say I was angry, I was just in morbid shock. I couldn't imagine someone doing this because it's not in my bandwidth to treat other people that way. So it's hard for me to imagine that someone would treat me that way. We all know people are like this, but when you're in those moments, you're like, I just there's no way until you're in it and you're just a mess because of it. And the journey took a while. In the body, I went through a lot of health issues because trauma really takes a toll on our whole body. It's not just the mental, it's everything. And then I went through a season of being jumpy because I knew that he had a pattern because some of the things Deana had gone through that he could be a little bit of a stalker or just try to barge in. And then when I had that phone call with Jane, the night that she found out the truth and she had just married him, I felt like very, how would you put it? The shock was different. I think it just made me feel extremely gross. Like I was not worthy. Even though deep down I knew I was, and I knew this wasn't me. This wasn't my fault. You know, in my mind, I'm like, if you were that unhappy with me, then you should have divorced me and then gone and to do your thing. But you didn't. You decided to do it while you were in a committed marriage with somebody else who had followed you around, who had nursed your two brand new knees, and yet you started a whole new life with somebody else. Yeah, it took a while. I'm doing great now, but it took a while for sure.
For sure. For sure. Miss Deana?
Well, I had multiple episodes of betrayal. In that 27 years, I left him 9 times. And I mean, pack up the little kids, go to my mom's, physically leave, not just threaten to leave. And the
Mom's in a
last,
different state?
no, mom, thankfully, I stayed close to mom.
Okay, good. Good. Good.
Yeah,
Good.
except for, a couple times we moved away, but it didn't take very many years before I just moved back because I knew that was the only place I felt stability and safe. And then I could take my kids, I have 4 kids, like that's a lot. It's a lot of little mouths to feed.
It is.
But the very last time was, again, 27 years in, and he had gone away to a facility that actually helps men with sexual addictions, and you live there. And he had lived there for 6 months, and he'd said he's going to get well once and for all, and all these things. So he'd gone away. And so when he came back, it had been about 6 months since that time that he came back. And I really thought that God was going to use our marriage. I truly did, to heal other couples going through this. This was going to be an example of you could get past it. You can make it. And I always felt that. I even had people come up and give me, words from God, that we're going to be used to do this. So I had a lot of faith, and hope, deep inside me that there was purpose in our marriage for these things. But we're driving up for my daughter. She's gonna get married, and we're gonna meet the new parents of our son-in-law. And so we're taking this little honeymoon trip, he and I, again, 27 years in, and all of a sudden his phone rings and he's driving, so I answer it. And it's a woman's voice and it's a blocked number. And I could tell she was outside, and so I knew it wasn't a business, and so I said, "Hello," and she's immediately gets defensive and says, "Who is this?" And I said, "Well, you called me. So who is this?" She said, "No, no. Who is this?" And I said, "Absolutely not. Like, you need to tell me who you are, and then we'll go from there." And she immediately hung up. And so here's what I felt. I think this will really resonate with any of you who have felt betrayal in your life. Immediately, I felt this sense of nausea. It was like my gut knew exactly what this was. I didn't even need any further information. I already knew. And that feeling translated to shaking, anxiety, and absolute dread of, oh my gosh, please not again. I thought this had gone away. I hadn't caught him in anything really for a couple of years. And I looked at him and said, "So there's this phone call." And he's like, "Yeah, what's that? Yeah, what was that about?" And I told him what took place. And he immediately started defending himself. I haven't done anything. How could you think that about me? How could you immediately go there? Like, I went away and did it, but it was there. It's that knowing, it's that shame and that guilt and that dread and that just knowing that this is happening again, and they are dragging you down under the water again just to swirl you around and drown you. And that's how it feels. And then after that, the very next morning, I went ahead and started pulling up every account I could find that he would have, because I was like, you know what? So many times I lived in this vague, I know something's wrong, I know he's done something, but he would just lie and say he didn't. So I couldn't prove it. So I had to live in that nauseous feeling constantly that there was something off. Now, this time I did my due diligence and I started pulling up everything, and I found an account that he had, that he used the password from this Christian rehab center that he'd gone to for his sexual addiction. He used the password that he used for that. And the password was supposed to remind him to be careful and to honor God and with his life. And he used that password. And it was so crazy. So I was able to open this account, and I found all these messages that had been deleted, but they were still there. And he was trying to solicit women off of Craigslist, for sexual favors. And it didn't have anything to do with the phone call that came in. I found out later that was somebody that he was actually having an affair with. But it was enough information to where I realized this will never change. This will never get better. This is what it is. And at that point, it was like God released me so completely that I had incredible peace. I was still angry and hurt and betrayed and all the things, that you feel. But it was like I didn't have any question about what my next steps would be. I didn't feel like I was, disobeying God by breaking our marriage vows or doing something wrong by walking away. The kids had already moved out. There was like a clean slate. I had I was just about to be offered that position in management that would make me very able to survive by myself. And it was incredible. It was an incredible time. It was incredible grace of God moment, where every other time that I had left, I had hit my knees and asked the Lord, like, what do you want me to do? I don't want to try to do what I want to do, but I don't really know this man. I don't know how capable he is of doing something really awful. I never saw anything, with kids or anything like that. That would be a no-brainer to leave. But I just didn't know how far this could go. But God in his grace just opened that door and said, you're free. You're free, and you're going to be okay. No matter what happens, you're going to be okay. You're going to be fine.
Absolutely. Do you all grieve the man you thought you married? Did you ever have those moments where you grieve the person that you thought he was, or the person or the man that he initially put on display?
For me, I think I would have always said is I grieve the marriages because they're very sacred covenants for me. So I grieve that, but I do not grieve the men anymore. I grieve what they did to what I felt was the marriage covenant. That's what I grieve.
Absolutely.
I did it first. When I realized he wasn't who I thought he was. I did grieve. But it was such a slow, it's kind of like they say the frog that, you slowly boil the water and the frog doesn't even end up knowing it was boiled. It was kind of like that. It was just things just, kept falling apart piece by piece, little by little over that 27 years. But I remember one point just really being sad that this may not work. But then me being kind of a Pollyanna, I always just popped back up with this hope, and this hope in God and knowing that there's always hope. He's going to get better. He wants to get better. He wants to get better. God wants him to get better. What else is there? This has to work. But realizing later and looking back, it was all an act. He just got better and better and better and better at being an amazing actor.
6 months is a long time. Well, 6 months to a year, because 6 months in rehab and then 6 months everything seemed to go well. So that's a long time to wear a mask.
Well, he wore a mask that whole 27 years because trust me, he was in church every Sunday. Our kids we were in church Sundays, Wednesdays for any event. I was helping in the daycare and he was always there. And that man had his hands up. He was worshiping, he even taught men's groups at times. So he wore the best mask. He just wore the very best mask. And he got to the point toward the end of our relationship, not even toward the end, maybe only 10 years in, that he realized that if he admitted what he had done and he looked repentant and he wept, that he could even move a whole crowd. He could stand in front of a crowd, which we had several times in a church or in a speaking engagement. He could admit what he had done, weeping that he can't believe that he did those things. He can't believe he hurt his family like he did. And people would come up and just thank him, for being so open and honest and just feeling like God had his hand on him for just, what a powerful testimony, what a powerful move that this man was going to create. And it was all an act. And that's why Lizzie and I always say, you're not crazy. You're not stupid, because they make you feel, they are fantastic. And you truly buy into it. And then if you happen to be someone who believes in God and believes that things can change and people can change, it adds into that as well. So don't ever feel that you're crazy. Don't ever feel that you're stupid or that you should have known better, because these guys and ladies, they're crosses all spectrums. They're just that good.
Absolutely. Dan, I can't let it go. It's beating me up. He stalked you, Dean. He stalked you at one point.
He stalked me at the end. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yes, he did.
Like in the bushes outside the kid's school.
I wouldn't say the bushes or anything like that, but it was more like when I would leave, he would show up to my work. He would show up to church, whatever church I was going to. He would show up in the parking lot. He would just show up everywhere, and he would just be, begging, pleading, sobbing, I'll do anything. Like, what can I do to get you back? One time he even ran through the rain, like probably 10 miles. It was pouring rain and he ran 10 miles in the rain, barely with any, just pair of shorts on. Just, we weren't runners. And he did that just to come and hand me this soggy love note, So yeah, there was a lot of stalking. There was a lot of incredible amounts of manipulation, anything that would work, swing from being angry and in a rage and threatening to weeping and crying and begging to, ignoring you and just, I don't care. I don't want this anyway. Just all the crazies.
Wow. Sound like an R&B song. Like Oh my
Yeah,
God.
and he would also threaten suicide a lot. Lizzie had to deal with that. He even had a gun in his hand when he was with Lizzie. He threatened you would go to leave and he would literally tell you that he was going to kill himself. And he had scars on his wrists from being in a relationship when he was 19. He had an affair with a woman who was much older, who was one of his best friend's wives. He was only 19 years old, but he told everybody that he worked at a mill, some sort of a mill, and he got cuts on his arms. But he actually tried to kill himself, kind of. Not really, because he didn't cut the right way. But, he would threaten suicide. It was a manipulation tactic. It was just a manipulation tactic. And over and over and over again, he would sit there and make you think he was about to kill himself. And I mean, the emotional upheaval was just insane. Just insane.
The roller coaster. The roller coaster. That's huge. What did what did forgiveness look like? If it ever came, either forgiving him, forgiving yourselves, forgiving the community that let you down, because Lizzie said earlier, dad even vetted it. Dad even, gave his blessing. So, what did forgiveness look like, if at all?
I think for me, forgiveness, I think because I was raised in a home where we were taught to forgive, and forgive doesn't mean that you trust. Doesn't mean that they've earned their trust, doesn't mean that, what didn't happen, that there's no accountability. It's more for me because if I wouldn't forgive, then I would become angry and bitter. And I know we've all seen those people that if they don't get to the point of forgiveness, they become probably really difficult to be around. And we all understand it. I think that the anger, I think a lot of those emotions are valid. But I think if over time we're continually in that very angry state, we're really only hurting ourselves. We're not even hurting the person that hurt us. We're hurting ourselves. And in order for us, I think, to truly, truly heal, we have to come to that place of forgiveness. And once we can come to that place to forgiveness, I think that's when you can look back and go, I'm really healing. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Deanna?
Well, when I walked away and I had so much peace and you know, just I don't know, it was like it's like being released from prison, honestly, by the time I got there, because I had tried everything. I can't even tell you how I'd stood on my head for 27 years, trying everything to make this better. It wasn't that hard for me to forgive him because I was like, he's just lost. He's so lost. And, I didn't like him. And I certainly didn't think, I didn't like pity him or feel like, oh, he's still the father of my children. No, I was like, I wanted my kids to stay away. I feel like he was dangerous. And, they didn't quite see what I saw at that point in time. They've since cut ties with him now, and he's not anywhere around them. But
Good.
forgiving myself was different because I think you feel like so victimized by this person that you don't in my case, I didn't understand that I really did need to forgive myself. I just knew that I had it's funny when you journey through because it's been over a decade now since I've been divorced from him. And when you journey through that, these things kind of come off, these realizations and epiphanies come in layers as you grow and as you heal. And you do realize that maybe you were the victim in this relationship. Maybe you were not someone that was trying to break down the relationship and do the crazies, but you allowed that in your life and you allowed that exposure to your children. You allowed your children to be in a relationship that, they never knew if dad was going to be in a bad mood and rage at them. He didn't abuse them. I would have left immediately, but he was just always in grumpy, grouchy moods and just didn't treat them like he really loved them and like he valued them. And I had to come to that realization with my adult children when I allowed them to unload and tell me what life was like, in that home. And I had to really bear that guilt of I could have left sooner and I could have, given them a better life. So that was a tough one. And I think honestly for me, a third layer, which I still sometimes struggle with, was forgiving the church. I still sometimes struggle with that because this person was such an awful person. And that's where we would go, was to our trusted, leaders in the church, and ask them for wisdom and try to get help. And I know, looking back, that they just didn't know either. They didn't understand. They don't understand these toxic relationships. They don't understand how manipulative and how the smoke screen is. But just constantly being, encouraged to stay and to keep praying and to keep being the good wife and to keep doing all the right things, and just constantly, being a little, just a little pat on the head and then sent away. It's very frustrating. And that's where I feel like, with Lizzie and I, part of our message is really also to churches and to church leaders to really understand the dynamic of these dark relationships and what really they need to be counseling people who come to them to do, and how to handle it and how to protect themselves.
Are you still at that church?
No, I
Yeah.
actually I didn't go to church for, honestly, probably 7 years afterward. I didn't go to church at all. I still loved Jesus and I still read my Bible and those things. I did not want anything to do with church. I just didn't. So that was the part that took a lot longer. And I have noticed that with women that we have talked with, that the betrayal from God is sometimes what they feel,
Yeah.
because, this person was whatever he was or whatever she was, but wow, God didn't protect me, or pull me out of that relationship. But on the flip side, and this is the honest truth, I am grateful for everything I went through with him, because I would not have the qualities that I have. I would probably be a very superficial person if I had a silver spoon in my mouth my whole life. You know, the beauty that God puts in people who have suffered, the absolute incredible, you know, when you meet someone who's been through hell in any capacity, and they're like this tree that has these beautiful fruits that nourish and feed and help other people. And if you haven't been through something like that, you don't get it. You can go to someone and talk to them. You can go to a therapist and talk to them. If they haven't really been through a relationship like this, they're probably not going to get it. So having that beauty for ashes situation is so valuable to me, and I'm so grateful. I really am. I am incredibly grateful. I would not have changed a thing with that, except for, again, looking back with my kids. So while definitely I'm not encouraging people to stay in these relationships or to go looking for these relationships, for that, what I am saying is, if you find yourself in a place of life that you got caught, even if it was your own mistake, even if it's something you did wrong, you have to understand that God will use all of it, that he will use absolutely all of it, especially if we turn around and we ask God to help us not be someone that repeats something foolish, but he will use that in our lives, and that's his grace. So even with my children, I know he's going to use this in my children's lives, because I never would have stayed in the relationship had I understood that they were being hurt, emotionally.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's hard. It's hard. Where does the church draw the line on accountability, and how deep does a church dig into your marriage, right? One of the things I will say is we need more circles that will force us to go back, and when I try to do that with my friends, I have a small knit of friends, and when they talk about their relationships, their stuff, I want to share space with them and always leave that door open so they can always reach out to me. But the two things that I hear in you two ladies' messages: one, if as a friend, as a ministry, whoever you are, if you're not equipped to handle something, say that, so that when a young girl or a young woman or a family reaches out to you and say, I'm not equipped to handle that, I appreciate you coming up and saying something to me. Let's go walk through this together. I'm still with you, but I am not equipped to handle that. Let me go pay for your first 3 sessions or your first 5 sessions of therapy, because I want to lock arms with you. And the second thing um is we need to really share time in this busy world. We're doing 6 million things. We got kids. The kids are screaming. Got baseball practice, soccer practice. But no one gets out of this by themselves. No one does this by themselves. We need each other. We need community. And so that where that church failed you is in the community aspect, and seeing the young woman not crying out for help and not interjecting more and interceding more. But again, that is a hard line on say how deep should I go into Deana's marriage? How deep does she want me to dig? Because now a line is crossed, or it can feel that way. So very, very powerful messages here today, ladies. You all are absolutely incredible. I want to end the show with this last question. You guys are fascinating and amazing. For the young woman watching you, for the young woman who may be in a narcissistic relationship, may be being not heard enough, how did you to reclaim your narrative when someone else tried to write it for you? How did you find yourself again and take back your strength and reclaim your power in this? And I'm going to start with Lizzie.
Well, for me, I had to kind of process that question. That's a really good question. For me, it was pretty much getting to that place. Leaving is a hard step in itself. So if you're in this situation and you are in a very emotionally abusive situation, whatever that is, the power is just being aware that it's not your fault. You're not crazy and you're not alone. There's so many people out there that are there for you. You just have to learn how to be vocal again and what to be vocal about. And also the process, I think what really empowered me with especially I have to go back with my first husband. Second husband, I just left, one and done. Second husband, I left him 6 times. And I would say that it was so scary to leave because you are vulnerable. You have kids together, you have debt together. Financial always holds us back. I think financial is one of the biggest, and then you just pour the guilt and the shame that also goes with it on top of it. I think the biggest empowerment for me was getting to the point that I made my exit, and I made it. I don't think there's any successful exit except for the one that you exit safely. I had a friend that was planning to leave her husband, and she was never physically abused, and she was planning on moving around the corner from me, and she texted me. She said, "Pray for me. I think my husband knows something's going on." And I said, "I'll be praying for you. Please keep me in the loop." Well, that night he took her life and then took his own. So the exit is critical. And if you can plan an exit that you know you need to exit safely, you should feel empowered. It may not look pretty. It may not look, financially stable, but staying is hard. In fact, it's harder. Leaving is just a small moment of your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Miss Deana?
Well, this is the moment I took back my power, and I was still, well in the relationship and still not sure that I was supposed to leave. So it was maybe 12 years in of the 27. I finally had this epiphany that all the books I was giving him and all the counseling we were doing and all of the talk sessions and the nag sessions and we need to go to this group and that group and this group, nothing was working. He was still doing what he was doing. He was still being who he was being. And I finally realized I have to change me. I have to work on me. I am not getting anywhere. Like, I'm exhausted. It's fruitless. So I started picking up books about codependency, books about women who love too much. Any book I could get my hands on that was a self-help book about me. I threw away the books about the marriage, tossed the books about, for men to help themselves get better and all the Promise Keepers stuff that was happening back then. And I started working on me. And that is where I finally got my power back. And not because I had this empowered feeling, and that I was, rising up, but that I was starting to get revelation after revelation of what this relationship was and what was actually happening and all the things that I was so confused about and that I didn't understand. And why was I tolerating this? I just started getting all this growth. I grew like crazy during that period of time. And with that, I was less triggered. I was less able to be pushed and manipulated. I could be kind and ignore what he was saying, and I wouldn't let it get to me. He couldn't make a comment and get me angry, or make a comment and make me defensive, or push me down. I was growing and I was finding my own life, and I was also started finding my own little circles of hobbies or things to do that mattered to me, and slowly, slowly, slowly gathering my independence, so that by the time I left, I wasn't just a fragment of his shadow. I was actually a whole person. And if you can't leave, with what Lizzie was saying, absolutely the most important thing you can do if you're truly with a narcissist or somebody that is just going to suffocate you to death, virtually, then if you can't leave, take back who you are by starting to understand why you're in this relationship in the first place, why you attracted to that person, and why you've stayed through all the stuff that they've done that wasn't okay, and grow within it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is whoops. This is incredible. My gosh. My gosh. Ladies, how can people connect with you? How can people find you? The train, this is left the station, but it's not too late to hop on board for that young lady looking to connect, that young lady seeking that loving hand, that loving, faithful hand that can point them in the right direction, or at least at a minimum, let them know they're not alone. How can people find you guys?
Yeah, so basically what you see here, Surviving Toxic Relationships. We have a website with that same name. We have a YouTube channel with the same name. We have a podcast, Surviving Toxic Relationships. And we also have a private Facebook group and a public Facebook group. And so if you just pull that up, you'll be able to pull up all kinds of resources. If you go to our website, you can find how to contact us. We are going to be starting groups for women in the early spring, so probably around February, so that we can just have a group of women for a small fee just to come together, and each week we'll have a theme, and they can just have a safe space to talk and open up and share what they've been through and get some clarity on what's going on in their life at whatever stage they're at. So that's kind of where we're going. Eventually we'll write a book. We're already on that path to do that. And that's where they can find us. And we would absolutely love to help, because we don't want anybody to ever feel the way that we felt or go through what we had to go through and feel alone in that stage.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Two women, one narcissist. That sounds like a number one bestseller to me. Um, please, that's huge. Connect, y'all. These ladies are on mission. They're here to help. I can see the young man screaming. Why? This only helps women. I think men need to see this so that when they have a friend who's an abuser or abusing their partner or not loving their wife properly, I think it's our place as men to interject and say, girl, check out this website. I just want to shoot you this text. You may not know me, but hey, check out this website. I think you're in a toxic relationship. So that's why. For
Absolutely.
that young
And
man.
believe me, there are plenty of female narcissists too. Theirs comes across a little bit different, but there's a lot of quiet, manipulation, and maybe a lot of emotional manipulation with their little womanly ways. But trust me, we've known many female narcissists too. So, our audience is mostly women, but we understand that it can go both ways. So hopefully this is helpful to everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, y'all. We are out of time. We gotta let these incredible women go. They have many more lives to change, many more women to impact, and many more books. They got this book coming out and a group to start. So get connected. And get connected with me. If you miss anything they laid down today, get connected with me and I will get you to them. Ladies, I want to say this to you publicly. Don't quit what you're doing. You guys are absolutely necessary. Absolutely.
Thank you, Marcus, so much.
Thank you. We appreciate you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, y'all. We gotta let these incredible women go. Like we end every show. Take care of your friends. Take care of your family. I hope this message was inspirational, and I hope it helps you take your relationship to the next level. And take care of business. This is Marcus, your favorite gentleman, and the super fragile espialidocious, Miss Deana and Lizzie of Surviving Toxic Relationships. Signing off. Love you guys. Bye.